to this week's episode of Coffee with a Career Coach. I am joined by a special employer guest today who I will let introduce herself in just a minute. But as we do on every Coffee with a Career Coach, I just want to share what my coffee was this morning because I already drank it and now I'm drinking water. But I had a chai tea latte with a shot of espresso. So I am good to go for the day. Please feel free to ask any questions during this live and we will get to them. And Abby, I'm going to hand it over to you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. I too have moved on to my water for the morning. There was some good coffee. I still have not cleaned up my desk yet, but actually had some coffee beans from Ponder up in town that I got last week when I was on campus, which was delicious. But great to see everyone. My name is Abby Spickard, and I am a senior campus recruiter with Plante Moran. If you haven't heard of Plante Moran, we are a public accounting firm. So we are audit, tax, management consulting, and wealth management. We're headquartered out of Southfield, Michigan, have offices all throughout Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, and Colorado, a couple international offices as well. I personally sit out of our Ann Arbor, Michigan office and have been at the firm for about 5 years now.
Awesome. That's great. And I love that you bought Ponder Coffee. That's so fun. It's such a good
It's
place.
so good.
So you kind of already told me about Plant Moran. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think two things to add. One is we are super excited. We're in our 100th year right now. So we just had our
Wow.
100-year anniversary in January. So founded in 1924. So we are celebrating all year long and we're super proud of that. And then I think when it comes to Plant Moran, the other thing that makes us really unique and special is our we care culture. I always love to put that in every intro. You hear audit, you hear tax, you're kind of like, okay, cool. What else? I think Plant Moran, our biggest thing is the culture, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about kind of as it always kind of weaves naturally into conversation, but that really is what makes us different. We always say that we have a we care culture. So we care about our staff, our clients, our communities, our people, and that really is what makes us super special here.
That's awesome. And that's so important because especially, our students who are currently looking for positions, those are the kind of things that they're looking for. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So what made you want to work at Plant Moran besides this we care culture? Because that sounds really neat.
Yeah, so it really, the people and the culture really was a big part of it. A little bit of interesting background. So I actually started on the audit side of things. So I have a bachelor's and master's in accounting, have my CPA. So I recruited a lot of different public accounting firms, big firms, small firms, Plant Moran size. And the people really stood out to me every time I talked with anyone at Plant Moran. They just seemed the most genuine. They seemed really excited about what they did and all of the opportunities that they had had, and really you could tell we're really excited to share about them and about the potential of new people joining. So that was a big piece of why I joined the firm. And then I think the other was just all the opportunities I knew that it would unlock for me. I knew that I didn't want to be doing the same thing every day. I knew I didn't want to stay stagnant and I wanted the opportunity to work in different industries, work with different teams, work with people from different offices. And that was something that Plant Moran really did offer. And once I joined the firm, I was excited to see that it was all true. It wasn't just a recruiting sales pitch. It was really something I actually got to experience once I was here. So it's been
That's
great.
great. So when you're at career fairs or on campus, what majors are you looking to hire?
So we look for a pretty wide variety of majors. A big piece of our recruiting is within our audit and tax area. So that's accounting majors typically who are planning to pursue their CPA license, or maybe your undergrad is different, but you're getting your master's in accounting or getting a second bachelor's. That's pretty common too. And then within our wealth management practice, we're typically recruiting finance majors. And then our management consulting practice is where it gets a little bit more broad. It's still typically something within the business field, but there's a lot of accounting, a lot of IT, different things like that.
Okay, awesome. So kind of a wide variety, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at candidates, and we talk about this all the time in our office because we help a lot with resumes and cover letters, are there any specifics that you look at when looking at a resume or a cover letter when you're hiring?
So I think the biggest thing we look for is I look for one, your education, is your education relevant and kind of what you're going for? But two, just are you involved outside of just going to class? And this can look a lot of different ways. I think a lot of times I talk to students and they kind of knock themselves because they haven't had an internship yet. And I tell them that you don't need to do that. You're searching for an internship. You have to have a first internship at some point in time. There's one always has to be the first. So I more so look for, are you doing something outside of class? Are you working? Are you involved in clubs and have a leadership role? Do you volunteer? Really anything that shows that you're building additional skills outside of just your school. We look a lot for kind of the soft skills of, do you have teamwork experience? Do you have communication experience? Do you have a leadership position? Stuff like that. So really any of that students can highlight on their resume, that's really the biggest things we look for.
Okay. And I mean, we always preach that too in our office.
Mm-hmm.
Academics are great, do well in your classes, but at the same time, you have to be a well-rounded candidate. So make sure you're doing things like volunteer experience and getting involved
Mm-hmm.
on campus and things like that. So it's good that you guys look for that.
Yes. I always say it's more than just your classes. And what I tell people
Mhm.
is, we can teach you how to audit, we can teach you how to do taxes. Like, we come in, we expect you to have some kind of accounting background, of course, and know some of it, but with so much of that learning is on the job. The things that are
Yeah,
harder to teach are those soft skills that you really learn through that extracurricular involvement. So that's kind of the thing that comes with time and practice. And that's why getting involved as early as possible on campus is so important, I believe.
absolutely. So moving on to the interview process, do you have any suggestions for our students or alumni who are going to be interviewing?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think one is, it can all kind of be summarized by just be prepared and do your research. So I think doing your research on the company, um, every company is going to ask you, why do you want to work here? And they want to hear something that's actually specific to that company. There's so many firms out there, specifically within public accounting. If you just say, oh, because you're a big name, that's not going to stand out to the people you're interviewing with. So showing something of, oh, I researched your culture or some different clients you've worked with, that always makes you stand out. If you know who you're interviewing with ahead of time, researching their background a little bit can always be good. And then also just coming prepared with questions. I always tell candidates, interviewing should be a two-way street. As much as the company is trying to find if you're a fit for them, it should also be you figuring out if they're a fit for you. So a lot of it really is, you need to be asking questions too. So thinking about kind of what's important to you, what are your values, what are the things you really want within a job, and figuring out what questions you can ask your interviewers to help you kind of get a good feel for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like how you said making sure that you're prepared because I mean, it's so important to know who you're interviewing with and not just knowing the generic interview questions, right? You have to prepare. I always tell students that applying and interviewing is basically a full-time job because you need to
Yes.
really submerge yourself into it. So I love the advice that you're giving on resumes and also interviewing. So in general for our students, do you have any advice that you would share?
Ooh, just in general, that's a big question. I would say to just think about what you're passionate about and don't be afraid to
Okay,
try new things. I think it's really
awesome.
easy to kind of get zeroed into, oh, this is the most popular thing I hear about, or I hear this company name thrown around all the time, or I hear this major thrown around. But really thinking about, what do you care about? What's going to be exciting for you? There's no one right path. I mean, look at me, I never would have thought coming out of school as an auditor that I would now be working in recruiting. So just staying open to trying new things, I think, is really important because you never know what might end up being a really great opportunity that you didn't even see coming.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. I mean, we also talk about that in our office because there's so many students that think, okay, well, I went into this, so I have to strictly stick with this one thing, right? But if they expand their horizons a little bit and kind of see more of what's out there, so much more beneficial to the student, to the company,
Mm.
when they really have that well rounded applicant that's really doing their research first.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you so much for being on with me today. I think we learned a lot about Plant Moran, but even more specifically, that advice that you gave our students. So many of them are asking, what are employers looking for? So for you to be able to tell them exactly what you're looking for is super helpful and beneficial. So I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on here. It was great getting to connect.
Absolutely. So I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday. We will be answering questions if you do have questions after the live in the comment section. So feel free to post those there. And we will be coming back in 2 weeks with another Coffee with a Career Coach. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.